What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Echoes of Elsewhere, the podcast where we explore the forgotten, the forbidden, and the fascinating. I'm your host, Courtney Autumn, and today we're diving into a topic that every urban explorer knows all too well: the ones that got away. These are the places we scouted, the buildings we dreamed of stepping into, the ones that whispered to us with their cracked windows and rusted gates, but for one reason or another, we had to walk away. Maybe it was a locked door, maybe it was security, or maybe, like in my case, it was a matter of respect and safety. With all that said, let me take you back to one of those moments, because this episode today was inspired by an explore I went out and did a few days ago. I had my sights set on an old prison power plant, and it was one of those places that has just been calling to me. There's broken glass, the whole factory aesthetic. It has graffiti, it's reclaimed by nature. I mean, you name it. I would have gotten to climb, which I've been dying to do. So there's a lot calling me to this place. But nevertheless, as I got closer, I started noticing some makeshift barricades, pieces of plywood and stuff kind of carefully stacked in doorways. And as doorways, or as doors, I should say. So definitely some evidence of human presence, and that's kind of when it hit me that this wasn't just an abandoned power plant. This, at least right now, is someone's home. So I won't lie to you, I was dying to get inside. The temptation was super fucking real. But as much as I love exploring, I do respect boundaries, and that includes the ones set by the people who've carved out a space in these forgotten places. So to me, urban exploration isn't really about disrupting. It's about witnessing and learning and honoring the history of these sites, the stories, including the people, even the ones who now rely on them. So I made the judgment call to walk away, knowing that I could maybe come back another time when the circumstances are likely different. Because let's be real, squatters can't stay in a place forever. They have to kind of keep moving. So I, like I said, made the judgment call to walk away. I didn't want to bother anyone, and my die-hard desire to get into this place definitely didn't overshadow the need for the respect that I usually try to maintain when I explore. So with all that said, I wanted to come and discuss this topic because I know that I'm not the only one who has experienced needing to walk away from a bando, especially one that's probably sitting at the top of the bucket list kind of thing, because that's typically how it goes. You know, it can never be a place that you just randomly happened upon and that you can be okay with walking away from. It's always the ones that you really got to think about it. That's just one reason why we don't go into some of these places, or at least why I don't. So I wanted to come and talk about some other scenarios that might make an explorer turn back and the different ways that we can approach them. I'm going to start with one of the most common reasons explorers hesitate is that ever-present no trespassing sign. Now, some of these are just remnants of old ownership, but others are more actively enforced. So a good rule of thumb that I like to go by is if a site has fresh signs, security cameras, or any signs of super recent activity, I usually try my best to reconsider. Or like I said, revisit. You can always come back and try again later. Not always worth the possible legal trouble, at least from my standpoint. Some explorers take the approach of calling property owners for permission, which I'm all here for that, honestly. I know some urban explorers are kind of on the side of like, it's not really urbex if you're asking for permission or something like that, which to me, I don't know. I just like exploring. And if I can do it with permission, to me, it just means that I bought myself more time and I can enjoy taking my time and taking all the pictures I want and be in a place for hours if I want to. And really, it's just like an invitation to go play on a playground for forever or for as long as I want to. So I'm here for asking for permission. I wouldn't want to do it every single time. Like I would not want to have permission to every place that I have on my map or on my bucket list. Because, you know, I do like the risk and I do like a good adrenaline rush. So half the time I can understand asking for permission and I'm totally here for it. But then the other half the time I don't want to. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. But I will say that especially with historical sites or decommissioned structures, you'd be surprised how often a simple, polite request can open doors. Literally. So there's that element of it. And then, like I was discussing, in my case the other day, encountering a place where people are living is always a moment for pause. If you see signs of an active encampment, food wrappers, clothing, a carefully arranged barricade, it's best to back off. The general rule, at least for me, again, I can't speak for everyone, but the general rule is don't disturb, don't take anything, and definitely don't push past clear boundaries. And there are some explorers who choose to announce themselves. I do that depending on the situation. Obviously, in my case the other day, I didn't even gain entry, so there was no reason for me to announce myself. But if I am in a bigger space where I can't see every room and I think that there might be possible squatters, I always announce myself, you know, and I think that sometimes that can go a long way. I think if you make it clear that you don't mean any harm and someone is in a space that you're trying to explore, it does go a long way, but that can really carry its own risk. You never know how someone might react to an unexpected visitor. And yeah, I mean, people in general are just unpredictable, and that goes for anyone. That goes for cops, that goes for property owners, that goes for squatters, that goes for other explorers even. You never know how people are going to react to you being in a place that you shouldn't be in, which really just that simple. So that can kind of be another point of caution while exploring. And then there's the obvious safety concerns. There are times when it's just straight up risky as fuck. You step up to a doorway and the floor's beyond sagging. You catch the telltale smell of mold or chemicals. You hear a creak above that makes your stomach drop. Sometimes a building can be begging you not to go in. And in those cases, I think the best of us listen. There are some of us who don't, but I think we all learn the hard way sometimes. But there's also the silent danger, you know, asbestos, lead paint, black mold. Some explorers wear respirators, not all of them. A lot of them do, a lot of them don't. It's very kind of down the middle, I've noticed. But even then, some places are too far gone. So if you don't have the right gear, it's just better to leave and live to explore another day, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at with the safety thing. I think I can speak for most of us when it comes to those kind of dangers. I think it also depends on what kind of property you're going to, but obviously if you're going to an old factory, if you're going to an old textile mill, if you're going to an old hospital or even an old school, there's even a greater risk for those kinds of things because it's such a sprawling space, and the longer it's been sitting and just kind of getting reclaimed by nature and exposed to nature, you know, it gets worse. So there's that element to consider. And of course, there is security and law enforcement, which sometimes the universe just puts a big flashing nope sign in the form of security patrols or law enforcement at a bando or a property that you're trying to gain access to. Maybe you're casing a site and you notice cameras swiveling towards you, silent alarms, maybe a patrol car does a slow drive-by. So when all of that happens, that's just usually not worth the risk for me. I don't want an encounter with law enforcement. If I can just completely avoid it, I will always do my absolute best to avoid any interaction with the cops, truly. So yeah, different explorers do have different tactics here. Some seem to go full stealth mode, waiting until the coast is clear, which mad respect for you guys. Others prefer the direct approach, again, trying to get permission or coming back at an off hour. I like to weigh the risk, but it really does depend on the place. You're never guaranteed to not have an interaction with law enforcement or anything, really. But if I can make myself feel confident enough and knowing that I've done everything at least in my power to avoid any potential legal trouble, then yeah, I might go at an off hour, and I don't know. I might weigh the risk, like I said. So I don't know. I think that experiencing having to walk away from the power plant was really eye-opening because I was so dead set on getting there. I'd been thinking about it for weeks. I've been mapping it out. I've been planning out my shots. I've been watching other people that explored this place. And I'm like, okay, I want to go up these stairs. I want to take a picture here. I want to take a picture of that. I had the whole thing, like literally to that fine of a detail mapped out. But it just wasn't meant to be that day. And it just really got me thinking about all the other times that these things can happen and likely will happen. It's not going to be the last time that I have to make the choice to walk away. I definitely don't want to go to jail or get arrested or have anything on my record if I can help it. But like I said, there's no guarantee that you will or you won't run into law enforcement problems. And obviously, if you're out here doing urbex, then you know what I'm talking about. And you know that you run that risk. We're all very clear on it, which it's funny because I see people comment on a lot of the explorers videos that I watch on YouTube. And even to me, sometimes there's people out there that just have to remind us that this is illegal. And it's like, no shit. Like no fucking shit. We know that. But again, I think that it's almost very intuitive work. I think in my opinion, I gauge a lot more with my intuition than I do most anything else. And I guess that's how I make a lot of my choices in the moment on whether to explore something or not. I think that the sketchiness of walking into a new place you've never been to that's abandoned will never go away. I think that there's always going to be that anxiousness, that anxiety, a little bit of paranoia, but also all of that kind of turns into excitement the more that time goes by, that you're at a place and that you've gotten into and that you are exploring. And all of that really makes it worth all those initial feelings. I think in general, urban exploring is not worth the trouble of getting arrested or anything to that degree. But obviously, if you're doing it, you are running the risk. I'm running the risk. And I don't know, maybe one day we can live in a world where this is viewed differently, because most of us aren't doing anything wrong. Most of us aren't vandalizing. If you're a true urban explorer, you're not vandalizing and you're not taking anything and you're not getting spots ruined and you're doing your best to do it right. And I know that has its own fine lines, but I know that a lot of the people I talk to in this community try their absolute best to document and preserve and do them both with the same honor, because it is an honor. It's an honor for us to be able to explore these places. We definitely don't take it for granted, and therefore we don't want to see them get ruined, and we're definitely not the ones ruining them. So I don't know. Hopefully we can all collectively in this community kind of bend the narrative that has been very stereotypically attached to us, because I've met some of the absolute most genuine and sweet and caring people and gentle people in this community. And I think that speaks for itself. I think that we all love this, and we don't want to take away from our community. You know, we want the abandoned places to always exist if we can help it. And we know that that can't always be the case, but that actually brings me into my last but not least segment of today's episode, which is the ones that are gone forever. There's this category of places that we lose, but they're not just the ones that get away for now. They're the ones that are literally gone forever. As urban exploration gains popularity, many iconic locations are being demolished or redeveloped, wiping out entire chapters of history that we'll never get to experience firsthand. And it's super duper sad. And one that still stings for me is Six Flags New Orleans. Damn it. That place was at the top of my bucket list for years before I even got really heavy back into urbex. It's just a place that I've always wanted to go to. I've always wanted to just see an abandoned amusement park, and what better one to do than Six Flags in New Orleans. It's just this post-apocalyptic amusement park frozen in time. It's literally a true dream location for any explorer, and now it's being torn down. So just like that, an iconic piece of urbex history is gone. And it's really not just Six Flags. There's so many legendary spots that are disappearing, and they're being replaced with new subdivisions and condos and living developments, or they're just cleared away with no trace left behind. So for the urbex community, these times are super heartbreaking. These places tell stories to us of industry and entertainment, of lives once lived. And when they're gone, those echoes all fade. So it is a reminder that sometimes we don't have the luxury of coming back later. Sometimes it is now or never. So it does make walking away from abandoned places really hard sometimes. But I do think it's safe to say that every explorer has one, if not a list of the ones that got away. And honestly, I think that's just part of the game. It teaches patience and it builds respect. And most of all, I think it keeps us coming back, you know? So anyway, I do want to hear from you guys. What is the one place that you almost got into but had to turn away from? Was it the security, a gut feeling, a locked door that just wouldn't budge, or maybe like with Six Flags, a place that you never got the chance to see? So I'm curious to hear your stories. Send me a DM on Instagram at Urbex Echoes. All of my information and where you can find me, including the podcast website, is linked in the description. As always, you can also email me. You can drop me a comment on Spotify. I would love to hear from all of you and any of you, even if you're not an explorer, but there's just this one random spot that you wanted to go check out, and then you got there and you couldn't, like... I want to hear everyone's disappointment. I'm kidding. But seriously, I would love for you guys to weigh in and give me your own experiences with this, because I know that, like I said, I'm not the only one. And sometimes it can be sad. It can be sad to need to have patience. At least for me. I'm like the most impatient person literally in the world. So yeah, anyway, feel free to hit me up, discuss your ones that got away with me. I would love, love, love to hear from you guys. And if you aren't subscribed to the podcast, be sure to do so and rate it if you guys would be so kind. it does help me reach more explorers and people in our community. So yeah, spread the word, share the podcast, review the podcast, rate the podcast, comment on the podcast. I'm done. But I appreciate you guys for coming back this week to listen to another episode. And yeah, I will be back next week. I have a very exciting Explore Day planned with some ladies in the community, which I'm very, very excited about. And they will be appearing on the podcast for an interview after we explore together. So be on the lookout for those details on my Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Oh yeah, the podcast is also available on YouTube now. So I'm officially on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So if you guys have YouTube, go find me. It's Echoes of Elsewhere. The link is also somewhere. That's a lot to keep up with, but either way, those are all my platforms. That's where you can find me. Please, please do so. With all of that said, I will wish you guys well, and I will talk to you guys next week. Until then, keep exploring the allure and the abandoned, the beauty of decay, and the echoes of elsewhere.